Good afternoon, everyone, or good morning, depending on where you're signing in from, and welcome to Contango Ore's Live Digital Summit. I'm pleased to introduce their CEO, Rick Van Nieuwenhuyse. Nick will take us through a short corporate presentation. After that, we'll be accepting questions. As a reminder, you can submit your questions in the Q&A panel on the right-hand side of your screen, little chat box on the bottom right, at any point during the presentation. You can feel free to get in touch with the team either there in the chat box, or if you think of a question like I usually do right after the event, you can reach out in response to the event invite, and we'll make sure that Rick and Contango's management gets your question and gets back to you as quickly as possible. As always, the summit's being recorded. It will be available on 6.com and YouTube to watch afterwards. Without further ado, I'm going to hand it over to Rick to kick things off.
Perfect. Thanks, Romeo, and good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us for an update on Contango's activities. I will, of course, be making forward-looking statements, so just draw your attention to our cautionary language here. I'm just going to start again at the top in the highlights. We're working in Alaska. It's a top 10 jurisdiction. It's always been on the top 5 or 10 of the Fraser Institute Global Mining Investment Analysis. Our Manh mine will be one of the highest grade open pit gold mines in the world with an 8-gram average grade expected to be delivered to the mill. We've had an agreement in place with the Tetlin tribe since 2008, so we've had a long working relationship with the tribe. We're fully permitted. We have all of our state and federal permits for mining. We're actually mining on site right now. It's a turnkey operation. Our major contracts are in place. We have a proven operator in our joint venture partner, Kinross. We have our debt financing aligned up with a $70 million line of credit facility with ING and Macquarie banks. This project will generate strong cash flows in 2024 when we're up in operation. And we have a great exploration portfolio, which I'll talk to a little bit later in the presentation. Just a slide of Alaska showing our projects in the gold. On the east by the Yukon border is our Manh project. Again, construction underway. We're fully financed. Kinross is our partner with a 70% interest, ourselves at 30%. They're our partner because we're using their Fort Knox mill to process our ore, which has greatly reduced the overall execution risk of this project. Our other project that I'll be spending a fair bit of time on is Lucky Shot, where we've announced an initial resource. This is a 100% owned project. It was a historic high-grade mine, again, right next to infrastructure. It also is fully permitted for mining, and our initial resource that we've announced there is small, but very high-grade, and we're going to be exploring that. And I'll run you through our plan here for this year. You'll notice all of our projects are right around the existing road system in Alaska. We're about getting projects into production as quickly as we can, so we're staying close to infrastructure. I spent a lot of my career working on remote projects, and it takes a lot more effort to get something that's remote into production, so we're going to stay close to infrastructure. Just a quick update on our share capital. Obviously, we just did a significant financial raise in a tough market. We now have 9.4 million shares issued and outstanding. We issued 1.6 million shares in this last financing that we did. We raised a little over $30 million, so we've got, after we paid the brokers and the lawyers, about $32 million left in the bank. And I'm going to apologize, there's a float plane taking off as we speak here, so hopefully that won't give you too much background noise. We've added to our list of top shareholders some other new institutions, Luminous and Liongate, along with Hexagon, Tocqueville, and the Cavelli Fund and the Alaska Future Fund. All shareholders, along with a significant amount of insiders. We still own about 25% of the company. So let's talk about Manh. Quick update. We're basically on track to be in production in 2024, mid-year. We're just finished up our first half budget of almost $34 million, and we're launching into our second half budget of $136 million. That's the big spend over the next 6 months. We've been working on the road all winter long, so that put us ahead of schedule, and our goal is to stay ahead of schedule and get this thing into production in 2024. And again, we're fully financed to meet all of our cash call objectives for this year and next year between our equity raise and our credit facility that we have with ING and Macquarie. I was actually up site a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago now, and lots and lots of activity. We'll have a groundbreaking ceremony here at the end of the month. So you can see that everything's getting pretty real out there. Lots and lots of activity. As I've said before, the mine site is a very simple mine site. It's just mining. Run of mine ore will be delivered to the highway trucks, and the highway trucks will transport the ore up to the Fort Knox mill. 2 open pits. They're relatively small. Waste dumps right around the edges. And again, this is all on private land. And again, we are fully permitted. Our mine contractor is Kiewit, one of the largest in the business. They've had a long relationship with Kinross on various projects. So we're very pleased to have them out there working. And our ore haul contract is a local Alaska business, Black Gold Transport, based in North Pole, Alaska, just outside of Fairbanks here. The trucks have arrived, and they've been outfitted for commercial use. The trailers are arriving a couple of weeks now, and we'll start road testing those in the very near future. The other area of work activity is at the Fort Knox mill itself. Basically, because our grade is so much higher grade than Fort Knox averages about half a gram, a little better than half a gram per ton that goes through the mill, not the heap leach, but the mill part. And our grade is 8 grams per ton. So we need more tanks and more piping to string the tanks together. That's the main area. So we have more cyanide consumption, more cement. The detox tanks, the carbon tanks, very, very important for loading the carbon before the carbon's stripped and the gold's taken off. So all that activity is mostly inside. And then zone 2 there is the laydown area. That's the oldest part of the tailings facility for the original Fort Knox mine when they started up. It's just a big flat area with a bit of a berm on it and a safety berm. The highway trucks will load up and dump the material onto the pad, and then that material will be brought over to just west of the mill site there. You see that little circular area. That's the cone stockpile that feeds into the mill. The last bit is putting a tailings line from the mill site down into the bottom of the Fort Knox pit. This is where Kinross Fort Knox has disposed of sulfide-bearing tails before for some of their other satellite deposits. True North and Gill were historically sulfide-rich ore bodies that they processed here. And this keeps the sulfide tails below water, and so that they don't oxidize and become a longer-term environmental issue. So that's about a little over 3 mile pipeline. Pretty easy to put together. Just splice the pipes together, run them out, string them along the side of the road. When we were out there, it looked like they had about half of the pipe already done. So all this work is underway. It's pretty much on schedule, actually a little bit ahead of schedule, as I mentioned, on budget with what was in the feasibility study. You can see the costs here. Our share of the costs are just shy of $65 million. And as I said, we're on budget. Our all-in sustaining costs, and this is probably the most important number on the slide, is $1,116 per ounce. So you can see when you use an array of gold prices, we're generating very strong cash flows. And when you consider we have less than 10 million shares outstanding, that's very strong cash flow per share. At today's gold price, you're generating well over $50 million of free cash flow annually. That is for our 30% share. So very, very robust project here. So with production expected in by the second half of 2024, We're well on our way to become a producer, and with Kinross at the helm. This is a very important project for Kinross. So just to put it in perspective, it'll result in Kinross Fort Knox generating about 400,000 ounces of gold for Kinross's share. So it makes Fort Knox a tier 1 asset for them. So I think everybody's pulling in the same direction here. So while Kinross works on advancing the project, we will advance our other early stage projects. I'll focus on our Lucky Shot project because that's where we're going to spend a fair bit of effort here in the next 6 to 9 months. View of Lucky Shot, I think you've seen this before. Those of you who are shareholders, anybody new, this is a mine that was in production in the 1930s. It produced about 250,000 ounces, averaging 40 grams per ton from that Lucky Shot 500 level there. The vein is quite extensive. It's a single vein or vein structure hosted by a granodiorite. It can follow along strike for well over a kilometer and a half. It's open on both ends. It goes into the valley on the east side by the War Baby there, and it goes on the back side of the mountain just to the west of Coleman. We've outlined an initial resource of half ounce per ton by drilling underground at the In-Search tunnel, and I'll show you that in a second here. That tunnel was put in the 1980s and got back to about 2/3 of the way back to the vein before the group gave up the effort. Gold price had gone from $800 an ounce down to about $250, and so they abandoned their effort to mine underground. We've simply just taken advantage of that and extended the underground workings from the In-Search level tunnel, which is about 200 meters below the Lucky Shot level, and you can see the area that was mined historically underground here. That's kind of all those gray lines there. That's the historically mined 250,000 ounces at 40 grams. Now, they did selectively mine, and they probably high-graded the ore to some degree, so we don't expect to see 40-gram material, but we've focused our resource definition around a half ounce per ton. So we've now refurbished the In-Search tunnel. We've extended it back all the way to the vein. That's where the white circle is there, the red line being the vein. And we've put that single drift in the footwall, the west drift. And our plan is to put the east drift in the footwall and then a hanging wall drift. And that's work we'll undertake here. Actually, we're getting it put together right now. We are an active mine site, so we are fully permitted for mining. Safety is our top priority. Our mine manager, Chris Kennedy, is formerly the mine manager at Pogo. He was there for 8 years, and we're lucky to have him as our mine manager. He runs a tight ship. We recently announced a resource update, and the focus was in terms of the ounces were at Coleman, which has been drilled from the surface. There's about 150 drill holes there. That outlines an indicated resource of excuse me, about 95,000 ounces at 15.6 grams per ton. Some additional inferred resources sort of around the edges where you have less well-defined drill density. And you can see over at Lucky Shot, we just have a very small resource, and it's only at the indicated level. We need a lot more drilling to do the proper job of assessing the resource potential of the Lucky Shot vein. So that's exactly what we're going to be undertaking here. We've been very very conservative on our capping strategy, basically reducing our gold by 30 to 40%, depending on drill density, and we'll continue to take a conservative approach until we get enough information based on drill density and based on bulk sampling of the gold distribution. So I would just view this as upside, that we're being conservative in terms of our resource definition. You can see it affects how the disintegration analysis affects grade, reducing it from 21 grams per ton down to 15.5 grams per ton. So we'll continue to use conservative parameters here. This is a view of the Coleman area, and you can see the density of drilling from the surface, and then where we're targeting to increase the resource and do a bit more infill drilling around the edges there. And you can see on the left side of the slide, we're basically drilling this from a series of pads from the surface, and we'll get started here in the next few weeks, drilling from surface, and we'll get as much drilling as we can before the snow flies, probably in mid-September or so. We'll probably be out there, and then we'll just focus on the underground. Our objective here is to outline 150,000 ounces of resource, up from the 95 that we have currently, with additional drilling on the 3 pads there. We go over to Lucky Shot. This perspective is looking north, and you can see that where the in-search tunnel has been extended into the Lucky Shot vein, and then the West Drift, where we've drilled a couple of panels. That's where the bulk of the resource is outlined there, and we just need to do a lot more drilling along those fan shots along the whole entire footwall drift, and that's basically the plan. This is what we've done to date. You can see the range of grades, and you can see why we use an aggressive capping strategy. One of the samples ran 379 grams per ton, is roughly 12 ounces per ton. So, we want to make sure we don't spread those super high grades too far, and that's why we use that aggressive capping strategy. This is the planned drilling in the footwall. It's about 400 meters of strike length there, so there'll be a lot of infill drilling. Our objective is to outline between 100 and 150,000 ounces with this, and then we go to the hanging wall and do the same thing on the hanging wall side. So combined with the Coleman, our objective is to get between 400 and 500,000 ounces of gold in a resource, and then we'll put together a mine plan. And again, I remind you, we're a fully permitted mine, so if we can do the same thing that we've done with Choh and take a run of mine ore here, this time it's underground rather than open pit like at Choh. We take the underground run of mine ore, put it in the box, and then haul it up to the Fort Knox mill for processing. Obviously, we'd enter into a new agreement with Fort Knox to process the ore on a tolling arrangement, again, like we've done with Choh. We do have one big advantage on with the Lucky Shot project, in that the rail line is about 20 miles from us. So we could just, rather than truck hauling the ore up to Fairbanks, we could use the rail line. So that's something we'll be taking a hard look at as we gather more information here. So I will stop there and open it up for Q&A.
Thanks very much, Rick. We've got a number of questions. I first wanted to go through 2 that came in via email, just before we jump into the ones that are in the live chat. First one is, Simon asks, is Manh Choh fully permitted through to production? What permits are still needed before a pour?
0. We are fully permitted for mining at Manh Choh and for processing at Fort Knox. So it's pour. Once we mine, run a mine ore leaving Manh Choh, highway trucks deliver it to the Fort Knox mill, gets processed at Fort Knox, all the way through pouring a doré bar that will be shipped to the Asahi refinery in Salt Lake City, and then the gold's put into our accounts, which are actually already set up with Macquarie Bank. So it literally is all set up to pour gold and start generating cash flow for our shareholders.
Perfect, thanks. Todd Fayron asks, is there a chance of, I'm not sure which project he's talking about, but is there a chance of political manipulations impacting the road construction?
So there's no road construction necessary for either project. The road at Manh Choh, we always had a drill access road, but we needed to upgrade that to a 6% grade so that the highway trucks could drive all the way up to basically the edge of the pit, pick up the run of mine ore there, and drive back down. So the 6% grade was what we went what we went with, and it just made for a little longer road, but it, more or less followed the same general route. It just tags or puts the mine site itself in direct contact with the road. It's about an 18-mile road between the mine site and the highway, and the highway up to Fort Knox is a paved highway.
Great, thanks. ROC or Rock asks, why did you need to finance recently at a price below market value?
Well, it's a tough market. We didn't want to issue a warrant. That was something we made a decision on, and so to get the financing done, we had to do a little more than a 20% discount. So, and it's definitely a tough market out there. There's no question about that. I think every time gold bounces up towards 2,000 and doesn't make it over, I think it's a disappointment to investors in general. And so I think in order to raise the last bit of money we needed, we had to sort of just bite the bullet and get it done.
I appreciate that. Mark asks, can you address the exploration potential around Manh Choh and the chances of extending the 4.5-year life of the mine plan?
Yeah, so it's a huge land package that is owned by the Tetlin tribe. It's 675,000 acres, and then there's a little bit of state mining claims on the northwest side that are part of the joint venture lands. And so there's lots of exploration upside there. Just a bit of history here. The Tetlin lands have never been explored prior to Contango ore coming in there and putting a deal together in 2008. It was an area that it didn't even have a geologic map to it. The tribe just never really invited anybody, including the state of Alaska or the USGS, to come onto their lands. Contango was the first group that they invited in to explore their lands. So we're pretty proud about that, and then developed a really good working relationship with the tribe as a result of that. But it is really kind of just virgin area. So we've done preliminary stream sediment sampling over, I'd say, about 80%, 70% of the area. And just to put it in context, it's about the size of the state of Rhode Island. So it's a big area. It's a small state, but it's a big area. And we've done a lot of work, what I would call sort of, in the Minex area, right around the two proposed open pits at Manh Choh. So we've got a lot of, surface soil sampling and geophysical survey information in that area. But the rest of the area, and that represents about 5% of the total package. The rest of the area, we just have stream sediment sampling and some ridge and spur type sampling. So we're just getting started. I think there's excellent potential. We're in the middle of the Tintina Gold Belt. That belt of rocks has generated over 100 million ounces of gold. So I think we'll have, we have to get the work done, and the focus right now is to get the mine in production. We're not focused on exploration right now. We're just doing some preliminary, what I would call sort of grassroots reconnaissance kind of work. But I think we've got great potential to find additional ounces on the Tetlin lands.
Okay, thanks, Rick. Kyle Holmes asks, can you provide some more details on the proposed Lucky Shot exploration plan for the rest of 2023 and 2024? He's looking ideally for a schedule by month or quarter, capital costs. And then the secondary question, I want to know what success will look like here if all goes well and according to plan.
Yeah, they're good questions. And so we're getting started right now. We're getting the rig mobilized, and this is the surface rig. That's our first priority because snow flies here by mid-September. So we want to be off the mountain by October. So we've got one pad set up, and we're going to drill 10 to 15 holes from that single pad in sort of a series of fans, and sort of get maximum use of the pad and not have to move things around much. Just kind of shift the drill rig around the pad. So we'll get that started here, hopefully by mid-August, and we'll run through we'll do as much as we can. So if it's a late arriving wintertime, we might get to mid-October. If it's an early one, we might get to the end of October, or so the end of September. And then we'll shift to the underground drilling. Our contractors' equipment's on site, so at least the mining contractors' equipment's on site. We have to mobilize the drill rig up. That's all that background work is already underway. So once we're drilling underground, we'll have a regular stream of drill results coming out. Probably every other week. We generally average about 2 holes a day. These are relatively short holes. They're maybe 30, 40 meter holes. So you get 2 or 3 of those knocked out a day. So we'll have lots of news generation over the next 6 months, and 6 to 8 months, I guess, when you add the assaying time in there. And then at the same time, we'll be starting to work on a mine plan. Our objective is to outline a minimum of 400,000 ounces of gold between the Lucky Shot segment and the Coleman segment of the Lucky Shot vein.
Great, thanks. There's a couple questions that I think you've been over. It's always good to reiterate. John Jang first successfully congratulates you for raising equity in a tough market, but would like to know what are your plans to further develop on the Tetlin Tribe land and other 100% owned properties?
Yes, I think we've covered the Manh Choh exploration. This year there'll be a pretty light year for exploration just because the focus is on getting the mine into production. We haven't set a budget for next year, 2024. My guess is it'll be significantly larger than this year's budget. This year's budget's I think it's just a bit shy of $3 million. So there's a little bit of drilling that they plan to do, and then most of it's that reconnaissance work I mentioned earlier. Our other project focus will be on Lucky Shot. But we will start to do a little bit more work on our Triple Z project and on our Shamrock project in particular. Those are the two that we'll kind of start back up as we'll be modest in terms of advancing the other 2 projects, and the focus for us will be on Lucky Shot this year.
Great, thanks. H. Tony Flinker asks, what did you say your AISC would be at Manh Choh and Lucky Shot as well?
So at Manh Choh, it's 1116, and at Lucky Shot, we don't have one yet because we're still working on just putting a resource together there. I think once we get, if we meet our objective of outlining a 400,000 ounce resource, we'll start to put a mine plan around that, and then that's when we'll sort of generate a all-in sustaining cost. I think it'll be, it's higher grade, it's underground mining versus, compared to say Manh Choh, which is open pit, but the grades, it's half ounce per ton grades that we're looking at Lucky Shot. So my guess is it's going to be similar to Manh Choh. But obviously that's a very forward-looking statement.
Oh, fair enough. MJ asks, any plans for a dividend, and if so, when?
Yeah, probably a little early to start talking about that or thinking about that too seriously. But if we can get Lucky Shot up and running in a couple of years' time, that would be a time when I'd probably take a hard look at doing that.
Great, thanks. Wesley asking, I think we've covered this, but always good to reiterate. Any highway permit issues remaining with the Manh Choh highway or haul trucks?
No, short answer is no. We're basically have licensed drivers, licensed trucks. They're underweight. I think they're going to be probably the safest trucks on the highway. They've got fatigue monitoring and the extra braking capacity, extra axles to lighten the tire weight, tire pressure on the highway. So these trucks, although they're big and they're carrying a lot of material, they're well designed, they're fit for purpose, and safety's obviously a core principle for Kinross, but also for ourselves. So we'll run to the highest standards. If there's bad weather, a storm conditions, whether it be rain or snow, we've built a buffer in the schedule where we can shut down for a day or two if it needs to clear the highways of snow, or if there's blowing snow, stuff like that. We're not going to operate in unsafe conditions. So I think we're in good shape there.
Perfect, thanks. Mark asks, will there be a winter break from the Lucky Shot drill program?
Not planning on one. I mean, obviously, we can get big storm dumps of snow. So, safety again being our top priority. Um, we've got an avalanche monitoring program. We trigger avalanches on a regular basis to control them, just like a ski area. So it's possible that we might have to shut down for a week if they have a huge snow event and we want to trigger the avalanches and clear the snow and just make the area, the site safe again. But we've been out there for a couple of years, so we've learned a lot about the winter operating conditions. So
Great. PJ has a question that's asking a bit for you to look into a crystal ball, but I'll pose it anyway. Can you compare broadly Manh Choh to Lucky Shot in terms of profitability? Are the resources similar?
Yeah, I mean, there really are different mines fundamentally. Manh Choh is open pit. 8 grams per ton is a spectacular grade for an open pit mine. It does have a high strip ratio. I think it's about 8 to 1, 7, high 7, 8 to 1. And your mining costs there, I think were, quote me on this, but I think they were around $3.50 or $4 a ton. So, if you do the math on that, our underground mining costs, again, it's a bit of a thumb suck, but you're probably a couple $100, $200 a ton there. So higher mining costs, but then our grade is twice as much. So we're going to be mining it again. Forward-looking statement here, but at Lucky Shot, it'll be selective cut and fill type of a mining approach. There are some new mining methods with using overhead tram systems that we might take a look at that are supposed to be more cost effective. So we'll certainly be taking a look at some of that. But kind of early to say. But my guess, just knowing the grade and what I think our mining costs are going to come in at, again, it would be this is on the assumption that we can just put rocks in the box and haul them up to Fort Knox for processing and work out a tolling arrangement with Fort Knox. And they've got plenty of capacity at the mill to accommodate this. But there's a fair bit of work to do between now and then. But I think they'll be comparable. I think our all-in sustaining costs will be comparable to Manh Choh.
Great, thank you. Time for a couple more questions, so please get your last ones in if you're still thinking of them. One question from T. Decker. How close are the majors, including Kinross, looking over your shoulders?
Oh, I don't know. I'm sure they're always looking. We're going to Beaver Creek, the conference in Beaver Creek, the Precious Metals Summit in September. So we'll see everybody face to face and get an idea of what other people are thinking and doing. You can't focus too much on that. If somebody else wants to take a run at us, that's certainly their prerogative. That's part of what makes the business interesting. So we'll just put our heads down and execute our plan. And importantly, we have all the money we need to do that. So we have the money to get Manh Choh all the way into production next year, and we have the money we need to advance Lucky Shot to a point where we can start thinking about a mine plan that makes sense. And so we'll just execute our plan and let the other guys worry about themselves.
Makes sense. Hannah asks, does Contango have personnel on site at Manh Choh at all times?
No, not at all times. We go down there on a regular basis. We will have a person on site at the mill as an oversight, making sure that everything in the mills, when they process our ore at the mill, the joint ventures ore at the mill, we'll have our agreement with Fort Knox has it so that we have a presence there, and not that we're turning the dials or making any adjustments, but we're just looking over their shoulder and making sure that they're accounting for our gold appropriately.
Perfect. No, appreciate it. I think that's all the questions and time that we've got today. I want to thank Rick for taking us through the presentation and the Q&A session. I really do want to thank everybody who attended today, particularly those who did ask questions. Like I said before, if you're like me and you think of your question directly after the event ends, please do respond to the event invite with your question. I'll make sure that we get to it as quickly as possible. And like I said, this has been recorded, and you should get the recording probably tomorrow morning as soon as it's available. You can always find more information about Contango on their website at contangoore.com, but I'll hand it back to Rick for a final word before we sign off.
Yeah, thanks, Romeo, and thanks everyone for joining us today. Like you say, if you have any questions, I think that info@Contango Ore is probably the best thing. To take a look at our website. We try to keep it as up to date as we can, and enjoy the rest of your summer.